Good afternoon, dear teachers. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm Katia Valli, Schools and Exams Marketing Manager, and I'm talking to you from our office in São Paulo, Cambridge, Brazil's office in São Paulo. What about you? Where are you joining from? I see people from Porto Alegre. Hello, Carla. From São Paulo, great, Letícia, Renata. I'm fine, I'm good. Carla, what about you? Teacher Carla has been attending several webinars from Cambridge. Good to see you back. Santo André also here, Jaraguá do Sul. It's wonderful to see so many of you joining. Yesterday, we celebrated Teachers' Day in Brazil. And today we will continue to celebrate Teachers' Day with a great webinar. This week, we will be running some more webinars. If please, you can move the slides to me. Right. And as usual, we show the QR codes to help you. So on the left, you have a QR code so that you access our Cambridge Brazil YouTube channel, where you have the recordings of past webinars. And on the right of your screen, you have our next webinars. Don't miss them. I invite you to follow us on social media. So we are in Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. A little bit of housekeeping before we begin. We should be taking questions at the end of the presentation, so please do send them in the Q&A tool. We will have time for that by the end of this presentation. At the end, we will send you a link in the chat box for feedback, and from the feedback form, you get access to download your certificate. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be available in the Cambridge YouTube channel soon. Today, we have the honor and the privilege of having Caroline Nixon and Michael Tomlinson together with us. Caroline has been teaching English since 1983. She's the director and co-proprietor of a successful English school in Murcia, Spain, where both still practice and enjoy teaching. They are the authors of primary courses, such as Kids Box, Power Up, as well as Pippin and Pop for very young learners. They have delivered several workshops and talks, and both were speakers at our Cambridge Days 2023. So I invite Michael and Caroline to our virtual stage. Hello.
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 How are you?
Great to have you here. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for inviting us.
Great. So let's share your slides, please, so that we can start.
Okay, I'll do that. Can you see that okay?
Yes, wonderful.
Good.
Have a great presentation. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In fact, that was the first thing I wanted to say was thank you, Katia. Thank you, Cambridge, for inviting us to come along and have this webinar. It's one of the few occasions that Caroline and I get the chance to present together. I think you can probably count the number on the fingers of one hand that we've done it in the 25 years we've been giving presentations for Cambridge. We've done it in...
What a pleasure.
Yeah,
what a pleasure.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you very much. And of course, thank you to the teachers of Brazil for being here to listen. I hear it was your Teachers' Day that you celebrated yesterday. Is that right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, they deserve it.
Thanks
what a gift.
Giving up your time to spend an hour with us as we talk about teaching in the young learner classroom.
All right.
True dedication.
True dedication, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Love it.
I hand over to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, as you can see from the title slide there, what we are going to be talking about today is the question of child development or children's development, how they develop through the years of their primary education, and how this development can, could, should affect the materials and the activities that we use with them in the classroom. The talk is going to be very simply structured. There will be a certain amount of theory, followed by some examples and some practical ways to explore this. To help you, well, to be honest, to help us with this, we've used some color coding. So the theory is when I talk, those are the yellow slides, and the blue slides are the practical examples and the activities that you can use in the classroom, and that will be Caroline's cue to come in and have a chat with you as well. So we will begin with a little bit of an introduction, a little bit of theory. When we talk about theories of child development, it's something that we can look at in many different ways, chart it in different ways. So we could look at their emotional development, their social development, linguistic, or intellectual and cognitive development. We don't want to look into these areas in exhaustive detail today, but rather paint a picture with broad brush strokes. But in certain areas, we will be honing in, focusing in when we think it's particularly useful and relevant to the kinds of activities we can look at in the young learner classroom. Talking about child development, there are probably 4 different age bands that we can look at. There's the age between birth and 2 or 3 years, what we could call the toddlers. Then the next would take us from 2 or 3 years of age up until 7, what Piaget called the pre-operational level. The next, which takes us to the end of primary education, is what Piaget called constructive operational stage. And then the final of the 4 stages covers secondary education. So in our talk, we'll be looking at this in 3 stages. The first will cover the early primary years, which relates to that pre-operational stage I've just mentioned. And then we're going to divide the second, the third of Piaget's areas into 2, mid and late primary. I think we should also mention at this stage the work of Vygotsky, who focuses on the social aspect of education, which we think is particularly relevant when teaching a language. Language is a social construct. It's something you use to communicate with others, and you learn it and develop it very much in a social atmosphere by interacting with others. And the school, talking about this, the school is also the social forum where children learn how to relate to others. They learn what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. It's where they talk to their classmates, they interact with their classmates, with their friends, with other children who may not be their friends, and they experiment with what they can do socially. So the social is something that we'll be drawing on as we go through these 3 stages. So as I said, the idea for the talk is that we will look at these 3 stages with a little bit more theory for each one, and then the practical examples. And that takes us on to the early primary years, which, as I mentioned, relates to Piaget's theory of pre-operational. So let's have a think about what exactly that entails. The first of these is that children at this age, they're concerned about the world around them, but the most important thing for a child of the age of 5, 6, 7 years of age, the one person that they really focus on is themselves. They are at the center of their universe. Obviously, their family, their close friends are important to them, but they haven't yet developed empathy, to understand how other people feel. So they're more concerned about themselves. And that's something that we really want to bear in mind when we're looking at materials we can use in the classroom. And it's why very often there's a lot of personalization that we do. So we relate things to things which are relevant for them. So it would be my favorite toys, my favorite pets, my favorite food, my family, my classroom. We relate it back to things which are important for them. The second area that I think is important when we're talking about this age group is catering for their affective needs, their emotional needs, because starting primary education can be quite daunting for young children. And we know that a child, or in fact, any aged student who is nervous or anxious, apprehensive, they don't absorb information. We need our students to be relaxed and alert. Therefore, to help us create this relaxed atmosphere, we think it's really useful to include a certain amount of humor which is relevant to the children that we're teaching. And this humor will help to create bonds with the other students in the classroom, to create bonds or links with the teacher and with the materials that they are using. Because the context that we present the language to kids is also going to be very important, very significant when we're doing this. The third point to mention is the importance of animism. Animism refers to the way that children still believe at this age that things like toys or pets can have human-like characteristics. That's why when we use toys or animals in a story, they see them as being credible. They believe them. And that's something that we can really draw on with this age group, using that in our stories, in relatable stories, or using puppets as well. And the final point I wanted to mention was the importance of stories and narratives. We know very much that children understand the world through narratives. It's the way that they interpret reality. And it's a tool which humans have been using to educate children for ages, for centuries, for thousands of years, which is why things like fables, folk stories, the oral tradition of passing down information through stories is still very relevant. Even in today's age of digital tools, a story is one way in which children will interpret the world and through which we can educate them. And so I'm going to change the color of the slide, which means that it's Caroline's turn.
Okay, so as an example of what Michael has just been telling us about, we're going to take advantage of this animism stage of children's development to involve them in an ongoing narrative throughout their teaching materials, our teaching materials and their learning materials. So they will see the characters that they already know and love that are in the book come to life in a storybook format. Initially, of course, children of this age can't read or write, so there are no words on the page that are relevant to them anyway. And so they will be using the visuals, they'll be using the pictures as the visual clue to understand the language, which has already been pre-taught. We've already taught the language, but now we're bringing it all together in this ongoing narrative. So in this way, we hope to make their language acquisition pleasurable and entertaining, and hopefully also will foment a real love of learning English and reading for the future. The earlier children are exposed to storybooks and books and literature, the more readily they will develop a love of reading in the future. And so first they will see the story on the page as it is here, and then they will see an animation of the story, which will engage them further.
Is that a cue for me?
That is.
Here we go. So we're going to play a little video.
Toys in the toy box, come alive. Walk and talk on the count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Animals, animals, big and small. Animals, animals, short and tall. As ugly, and they've got 2 long teeth.
I'm here, Marie. I've got the snakes. Snakes have got 2 long teeth, but I've got 2 big arms.
Thank you. You're a superhero.
Oh. Help, Mouse-Man! Look at these crocodiles! They've got big mouths, and they've got a lot of teeth. I'm here, Trevor. I've got the crocodiles. Crocodiles have got big mouths and a lot of teeth, but I've got long legs and big heads. Oh, Maskman, thank you. You're a superhero. Oh. These elephants, they're very big, and they've got very big feet.
Maskman, elephants are very big, and they've got very big feet. But I'm a mouse, and I'm very small.
Thank you, Bunty. You're a small mouse, but you're a big hero.
Oh.
So this story, apart from being the vehicle for language acquisition and a narrative, also has the added plus factor, if you like, of the Aesop's fable type moral to the story. That what we're teaching children here is the life value that you don't necessarily have to be the biggest, the bravest, or the cleverest to be of service to your friends or your family, or to be a superhero in your own life. That children should be able to internalize this message and apply it to life values. Recognize that everybody in all walks of life have their own personal attributes that contribute something to the collective whole. And the story also manages children's, or helps children to identify different emotions throughout the story. So first of all, they can identify fear and apprehension at the beginning. Then courage, Masked Man taking a hand and saving his friends, that shows courage. Monty at the end showing courage. And pride, Masked Man was proud. He was a superhero and he was proud. And at the end, Monty was also very proud of himself. Gratitude and affection. So there are different emotions that are demonstrated throughout the story, which are also very important for children to start to recognize and develop as they go along. A lot of children will be able to also relate to the dream scenario because it taps into the fantasy world. Children daydream, they usually dream at night, and they can relate to this scenario of flying or doing amazing things while you're in your dream world. So it shows the imaginative and creative aspect of children's lives. Now, while Monty was having a good dream, his fellow characters, his friends, weren't having such a good dream. In fact, their dream was pretty bad. They were being chased by wild animals. And this is a scenario, again, that children can relate to. They can relate to having bad dreams and the relief of waking up in the morning, back in the real world. Everything's okay. They're safe. They're in their bed. Nothing bad has happened. And they can identify with this. And with this relief comes an element of humor. You know, oh, it was just a dream. It was just a dream. Everything's okay. Nothing bad has happened. And the element of humor to kind of bring that sense of rising tension with all the wild animals, that these great big elephants, these enormous animals that are much bigger than the toys themselves, are frightened away by Monty, who is absolutely tiny in comparison. So there is an element of humor, and children, when they laugh, they dispel anxiety.
Moving on.
So, as we've seen, the stories can be used to transmit life values, but they can also help children to recognize and make a register of these emotions, and especially if we encourage them to act out the stories through role play. Children love going into this fantasy world, and they are quite capable of just stepping into a persona and living the fantasy. So we can take advantage of this aspect of younger learners and encourage them to participate in role play in a very unself-conscious way. We can use flashcards. You know, they could hold a flashcard up and they are the character of the flashcard they're holding. We can use puppets. Here, I have Monty and Trevor as puppets. But if you haven't got puppets in the classroom, we've also found that for each color character, gray, green, blue, or white, even a sock on each hand, opening and closing its mouth as you speak, because children have this capacity to imagine that sock is then the character. Children love dressing up as well. So any little props, you know, children, if you give them a pencil, they will believe it's a microphone. This is the fantastic thing about teaching young children. So even again, the T-shirts here at the school, we've bought extra large T-shirts that look like dresses on the kids. A blue one for Masked Man, a white one for Maria, a gray one for Monty, and a green one for Trevor. And away they go, and they will perform admirably because they're not aware. And this is the thing about teaching. The key sometimes is making your pupils forget themselves, forget that they're in the classroom, and forget that they're in a learning environment. So we could do a little role play here. Oh, Monty. Oh, big elephants. Big feet. It's all right. Oh, Monty, you're my superhero. You, Trevor, and you're my friend. Very simple dialogue that children can act out, just some simple sentences, and they really get into it. You can put them into pairs or small groups of 4, and they can help each other or monitor each other. One can say the words and another one can stand by and help them with the words. If they forget the words, it can be a collaborative activity. And there we express the pride, the affection, the gratitude, the fear, and children can make a register of those emotions, because at the moment they are a clean slate. They don't recognize their emotions, and so they find them very difficult to manage if they can't even identify them. So this will help them to manage their emotions better in the future.
Moving on to the next stage, the next level, the next area of development, mid-primary. So having just come from the puppets and the fun and the humor, I think the first point that we need to make is that we want to carry that through all of the stages of learning, that this joy of learning that we've tried to instill right from the beginning isn't something that we should lose just because the children are getting older. So we need to adapt any humor we have to the way that they are growing, the way they are getting older, the way they are becoming slightly more sophisticated. And we can perhaps also make use of this humor and fun to help develop things like life skills, as Caroline mentioned, with the younger ages. As they get a little bit older, there's much more that we can do with that. Life skills or life competencies, such as collaboration, communication, creativity, as we've seen here. So that's something that we can continue to draw upon. Now, I mentioned right at the beginning that from 7 onwards, they start moving into the concrete operational stage mentioned by Piaget. And one of the important characteristic changes that we get from that, well, from sort of 3rd year of primary and within a standard framework, is that they now start to learn empathy, which means that they're capable of understanding how other people feel, how other children feel, and also how parents feel or why people react in the ways that they do. So clearly the people around them, their context becomes ever more important. We want to make sure that we reflect that. But it's worth remembering that whilst their peers are particularly important, peer pressure can also cause its problems. So it should generally be positive, but we need to be aware that sometimes it can, we need to be aware of the potential negativity of that and to counteract it as we can. Another area that starts to develop now is that whereas before children tended to see things in terms of black and white, they would respond with yes or no. They're now more aware of the complexity, as we've seen with their friendships, the complexity of what surrounds them. So it's not black and white, but it's more a question of a gray scale. There are different shades of gray. And that complexity is something that we can draw upon when setting them tasks. So we want to be continuously challenging them, and by using things like puzzles in the classroom, making them think about what they're doing, not just with language, but also the kind of task they're doing. It's important that we keep on pushing them as they develop. And this is another way that we can help to develop those life skills. And that means that I go back to the blue slide.
And here I am again. Okay, so we're now looking at what would be, at least for us here in Spain, 3rd and 4th year of primary education. So the importance of the visuals. firstly, our characters, the child characters, have grown up. They're not the same children they're not the same illustrations that children saw in the earlier levels. So this reflects the actual growth and development of the pupils themselves. They see that everything is growing with them. The importance of a visual that shows a relatable context. Children here can see a family scene. It's an intergenerational family scene. So it's got grandparents, aunt and uncle, and parents. And it's the real world now, not fantasy. And they're all doing a pleasurable activity. Excuse me. They're all doing something that's fun. And when children see a fun page,
All
right. I've got a frog in my throat.
Oh dear.
So when they see something that's fun, it should help to relax the environment in the classroom so that children feel that they are in a fun, excuse me.
He's gone.
I think it's Trevor. He's
Putting
taken hold.
Putting on Trevor's voice, yeah.
So if children see a fun visual, they will reflect upon that, internalize it, and hopefully this will create a relaxed and distended atmosphere in the classroom. Here, what we're going to ask children to do is to take the knowledge that they've already acquired in earlier units or earlier levels, the ongoing accumulation of knowledge that they already have, and connect it to the new vocabulary that they've just learned. So it's a cognitive challenge. They're going to have to listen to the audio, decipher the visuals, as we said before, take clues from the visuals, and complete the activity, supplying the word that is required. So this is much more challenging than activities that they've been doing up until now. We are actively asking them to activate their cognitive deduction and reasoning to complete the activity. And they will hopefully find this more challenging and thus more engaging, because if it's too easy, children get bored very quickly. But there's an element of challenge. There's an element of keeping them awake and listening, which they should find quite appealing. Okay.
Bit of audio.
Yes.
Keep Caroline's voice at rest.
Pupils book, page 11. 2. Listen and complete.
Susie's sitting next to her.
Mother. Mum.
Or mum.
Mum.
Grandma Star's painting a picture of her.
Granddaughter. Oh, I didn't wait for the beep.
So excited.
Simon's playing football with his...
With his uncle. With his uncle. Me.
Mrs. Star's reading a book to her
Daughter.
Perfect timing.
We learn in the end.
Grandpa Star's taking a photo of his...
Son. Done.
Stella's playing a game with her
Aunt.
We done now?
Absolutely.
I think we are. Right. Yes. Moving on.
Okay, and another format in which children or pupils can consolidate and practice their acquired knowledge is through board games, the playing of board games. Now, most teachers have occasionally said to me, what's the point? What's the point of so much game playing? Why are we playing another board game? So what exactly does a board game bring to the table?
Oh.
It brings a lot. First of all, again, we are tapping into the unself-conscious mode of language reproduction and performance, if you like. So this board game, if you can read it and you look quite closely, it's quite complex. It's reviewing most of the language that they've seen to date. So things like say 5 school words, we're checking and practicing vocabulary and grammar. What's the past of choose? So they have to know their irregular verbs, for example. And if you were to give your pupils a test or an exam, or if you were to test them in an ordinary classroom environment, they probably wouldn't perform as well as if you gave them this board game. Because again, they are forgetting themselves. They leave their anxiety behind. They're having fun, they're playing, and they generally want to win. So they will perform to the best of their abilities. That's one of the advantages of playing in the classroom.
In the flow.
They're in the flow, exactly. But apart from that, you foment collaboration. Pupils have to work together to play and have fun. So if we're working in small groups of 4, then they have to work in cooperation and collaboration. So they're learning really important social skills here for this age group. It foments learner autonomy. They have to learn the rules. So we have the rules up here. They have to read them. They have to assimilate them, learn the rules, and adhere to them. Not only adhere to them, but self-regulate, because obviously in a large class of maybe 25 pupils, the teacher can't spend all of her or his time with every single group. They will go around the classroom monitoring and supervising, but the children will have to have learner autonomy because they will have to self-regulate about, is this correct? Is it not correct? And call the teacher only to be the arbitrator when it's absolutely necessary, but basically following the rules. And it also foments social skills with interaction. So they have to learn to take turns. They have to learn respect for their companions, that if their companion gets a point that they didn't get, there's no name calling. It's all respectful. There's turn taking, and winning and losing has to be taught to them so that they manifest it with equal grace, that children have to learn to lose with grace, but more importantly, sometimes they have to learn to win with grace. So all of these are life skills that they are developing through play. Pupils get to work with different groups of children each time they play. So they're not constantly, they'll get to work with all of the children in the class and not only their own personal groups of friends. And again, it practices language in a very unself-conscious way. They are unaware. Okay, so here, the only element of this area of their development and their age, talking animals, and we can't depend on the animism aspect anymore. So we're going to draw on a story that includes an element of comedy. First of all, what we'll notice with this picture story, because they're learning and they're developing their reading skills as they go through, there is far more text on the page. There's text on the page, but at the same time, children will be making their deductions about the language from the visuals. So they have the support of the visuals. They have the support of they already know the language before they get to the story. So this should be a very pleasurable activity. And there is an element of humor to it. We have these 2 rather mediocre detectives, a private detective agency, Lock and Key. And basically they never resolve a mystery. They very rarely get anything right, but they have a complete optimism for everything. They're enthusiastic about everything they do, and they are unquenchable, that they can't be held back. So again, there's a life skill there that it doesn't matter. They're not always successful, but they keep trying. And here we have a social situation between Miss Potts, Locke, and Key, where they have to face their face their fears and do what she asked them to do in a humorous context.
Would you like some audio for that, Mom?
I would, yes, because I won't act all of those voices.
Here we go.
Pupils Book, page 23. Story.
Lock and key, from the detective agency. We can find it wherever it may be. We are Lock and Key. Go. Ah, lovely house, Mrs. Potts. It's very old.
I think it's got a monster.
Oh.
It lives under the stairs in the basement. It comes upstairs at night.
Oh, I don't think so, Mrs. Potts. There are no monsters.
Can you go downstairs and look in the basement for me?
Of course we can. Yes. No problem, Mrs. Potts. Oh, I'm not happy about this lock. I don't like it. It's a monster.
There you are, Clarence. You naughty cat.
The house hasn't got a monster, Mrs. Potts. No, it's got a cat called Clarence. Meow.
So another aspect of this storytelling is the use of the voices and the intonation. So children also pick up the comical intonation, the comical scenario whereby Potts is trying to Locke is trying to impress Miss Potts at the beginning. Key is frightened about going into the basement. He's terrified. And then at the end, it's a cat. It's all okay. There was nothing to worry about. They fall down the stairs. There's a lot of banging, a lot of sound effects. Children find this hilarious. Children of this age find this hilarious. And then Mrs. Potts, who is absolutely indifferent to Locke and Key's misadventure and only dotes on her cat. And children pick up on all of those different aspects of humor.
They do indeed.
They do.
Okay, so that takes us on to the third of our stages, which is late primary. Now, not surprisingly, the first thing we want to point out is here that the children are obviously more mature in terms of their emotional development, as well as linguistic and social and cognitive. And we really, as we've said with the earlier stage, we need to make sure that we're keeping up with that, both in terms of the context we're using and the kinds of tasks and activities that we're asking our children to do in the classroom. As we saw the development in the previous stage, where they have growing empathy, we're also seeing that their social development is becoming more and more important. They're not adolescent yet, but they are moving towards adolescence. So their friends, their circle of friends will be growing and will be more important to them. I think it's worth mentioning the figure that Vygotsky pointed out, of the more knowledgeable other, which is this idea that children of this age look up to other children who they see as being possibly slightly older, slightly more mature, or it could also be a young adult. Sometimes it's the teacher, that they almost put them on a pedestal and they want to be like they are. So this social environment is extremely important for children of this age. And that's something that we need to bear in mind, both when we think about the dynamics of the classroom we have and of the materials that we're using with them. And the final point, of course, is to make sure that the tasks that we're using continue to develop the life skills that we've been looking at earlier, and continue to challenge them, both in terms of language and in terms of the thinking skills that they need to complete the tasks, so that they're not just concentrating on the language. We really want to get their brains activated, the cogs whirring. And we find that, or everyone will find that when they are thinking about things that aren't just the language, then the language comes more naturally to them. And so we'll look at an example or two of that now on the blue slides.
Okay, so now for this later and last stage of primary, not only are the characters seen to be more grown up, but they've actually come to life. They've come to life as a photo story, because children who are pre-adolescent find this far more relatable now than perhaps illustrations. Seeing photos, seeing the characters brought to life, they are real people, adds to that human interest aspect that children of this age are now very keen to know about each other. They're keen to know about details of their lives. In a classroom, if you were to share that you've got a dog, they instantly want to know what your dog's name is. They are very, very interested now in other people. So here we have the characters. They themselves are learning to become more independent, and each month or periodically, they write a school blog, because they have taken part in the International School Blog Competition, which if they win, they will win computers for every member of their class. So this is the ongoing narrative throughout this level. The worry about giving a good blog, the worry about whether they have a topic or a theme that is valid, and that's the theme of the vehicle really for the language teaching and acquisition. So here are our three friends doing what they do.
There we go.
It's in plural.
As you know, today's the school prize day. But first, we're going to have our yearly fitness challenge. For this year's fitness challenge, competitors will need to cycle 500 meters, jump over the mats, walk along the bench, and climb over the wall. Then later, we're going to give the prize to the winners of the blog competition. Right, now competitors need to go to their bikes.
Good luck in the race, Lenny. Have you ever won a sports prize? No, I've never won any prizes.
Ready, set, go!
He's doing really well. Yeah, he's jumped over the mat. And he's walked along the bench. But he hasn't climbed over the wall. Come on, Lenny, you've nearly finished.
Oh no, I can't do it.
What's he doing? He's stopping. I can't believe it. He's gone back. He's lost the race. No, Stella, he hasn't lost the race. He's stopped to help a friend. Oh.
Well done, Sarah. You've won this year's fitness competition. Now, I have the names here of the winners of the school blog competition. They are Mira, Stella, and Lenny for the Kids Box blog.
We've done it! We've done it! This is the first time I've won a prize. Well, I think we should celebrate. Let's write one more blog post. Let's do it on sport. Cool.
Yeah.
So there we have it. That was actually teaching and practicing, not teaching because they had already studied throughout the unit. They'd studied the present perfect. But children will be watching that with the human interest lens. And they would be following the competition, not really, they would be assimilating that language in a very natural way without analyzing that what they're practicing is the present perfect. And this is what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve developing a natural context in which children can assimilate language and then use it and reproduce it. But apart from the language input, we have this human interest element where Lenny doesn't, he's in a winning position and he stops to help a friend. So it's helping children to see that winning isn't always about winning the competition. It isn't always about winning the race, that there are different ways of winning in life. And sometimes that winning can quite simply be that you are satisfied with your own performance or the way that you've behaved in a certain situation. So again, we are trying to convey these life skills as these children are developing and starting to enter now adolescence. One of the important elements, of course, at this age is that children are now very, very strongly developing a sense of empathy. They're starting to look around and see that other people might be hurting or sad or happy or need help or assistance. And they are starting to regulate this aspect of their emotional life as well. So here, this is a reading activity. As you can see, with the greater progress, these reading activities are much longer than we've seen before, and it's pretty much a block of reading without so many visuals or pictures to help them. And what we've tried to do is to integrate a topic that at this age probably affects all of them directly, which is the topic of bullying. And hopefully with this topic, not only will they read it and read about something, again, the human interest aspect. Oh my goodness, somebody's getting bullied or somebody's asking for information. It's a problem page. And children of this age do like to find out about how to resolve problems. But apart from that, we can open a forum in the classroom to talk about bullying. We can bring this topic out in the open and ask children for their input in English about bullying, and perhaps give them the skills that they need to face this kind of problem in the future, or help somebody else who is in this situation, either being bullied or as a bully. It's to help them, make them think about their relationship with children of the same age as themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last skill that we want to cover today is writing skills. This is the one that everybody tries to run away from, because it's perhaps the hardest skill, because it's internal thought, exteriorized and put down in writing. So this skill, to develop it, we need to start developing it at an early age. This is a good age to start. And it has to be very, very carefully scaffolded. It has to be set up in such a way that children don't become anxious about what they see as a difficult skill. So first they'll watch a documentary on a topic, and then they'll read a summary or an aspect of the same topic that they've seen on the documentary. Then they can work in pairs to talk about things, ask and answer questions about the documentary, express their own opinions, and then they can go to the ready to write page. We have a learning to write tip, and then there's another page to help them again scaffold this skill. And we can break the activity down into small parts that they just write a single sentence, and when they bring their sentences together, they've written a paragraph. So a step-by-step scaffolded way of learning how to write, which is something that children do find quite intimidating.
They do. And so do teachers sometimes as well.
People in general.
So that is bringing us very close to the end. So to sum up, what we think to draw out of this is that as teachers, we need to be aware of these stages of development and the skills that children are capable of using as they develop, and to draw upon those as they do go through the process. Not just in terms of emotional and personal, but also life skills, cognitive, reasoning skills, all of those, adapt them to the stage of their development. But at the same time, make sure that the process is enjoyable, that they're still enjoying their learning through a little bit of humor by using relatable contexts, which are, again, are appropriate for the age at which they are learning. And with that, ladies and gentlemen,
I'll soon let you know if it isn't.
The kids do.
They don't hold back.
They're honest. They are honest. And that is all from us. Well, unless there's a question or an answer, perhaps. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael and Caroline, for such a wonderful presentation. Teachers, do you have any questions to our authors? I see very positive comments here in the chat. I'm not sure if you are following too, Michael and Caroline.
We're just having a quick look, yes.
Wonderful, amazing, congratulations.
Positive, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
From your experience,
say nice things.
Yeah.
Yes.
From your experience, what would you say are the most challenging stage of development for you as teachers?
Each stage has its own peculiarities, I would say. I mean, I've leapt in, and each stage has its challenges. So, for example, at the earlier ages of 6 to 8, for example, for me, it's important to ensure an idea of respect in the classroom. Children must respect each other. They must respect the teacher. The teacher will always respect the children. It has to be mutual always. You can't ask children to respect you if you're doing things that aren't always completely respectful. They should respect property. They should, because, you know, children like to write on desks. They like to do things with their material that isn't always the best way of using it. So it's conveying a general atmosphere of respect. And then once you've got that established, then the middle stage is perhaps the least conflictive.
Yeah. You need
The
to
middle
set
stage-
down routines and things for the earlier kids to make sure that they
Yeah, it's all about routines
know
and
what they're doing.
rituals and coming into class, going out of class. As a grown-up, you're teaching them to already be mature when they aren't.
But
or
it's
try
also
to.
it's quite difficult to generalize because it changes from group to group. You can have some groups of 6-year-olds who are little angels, and others who certainly aren't. And the same can be said of 11-year-olds.
Yeah.
I think.
But I think
I
that
love
the
them all.
older group also brings its challenges in that
Yeah.
they are pre-adolescent and therefore they are already adopting a certain stance.
They have attitudes.
Yeah, they have
You start to
attitudes.
see
And they're
attitudes.
starting to test the waters and push the boundaries a little bit. And so you really have to go with the flow. You know, I say to teachers, you have to be bamboo. Who was that kung fu fighter? What's his name? The actor? Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee said you have to be water. And actually, I don't think water. I think you have to be bamboo. Bamboo is so strong, it can hold, it can create structures, buildings, whole buildings can be made out of bamboo. But if there's a hurricane, it can flatten right against the earth, lie down against the earth. And once the hurricane has passed, it springs back up again and it's still alive. So be bamboo, my friends, be bamboo.
Good advice, Caroline. All right, so I see we don't have any questions. So we are over 4 p.m. here in Brazil. So we thank you very much once again, Michael and Caroline, for delivering such an interesting and really important talk to our Brazilian teachers.
Thank you for inviting us.
We'd like to wish them again Happy Teachers' Day.
Yes.
And hope to see you in other webinars.
Okay.
Well, we'll talk about that.
All right. Thank you, teachers, so much for your participation.
And thank you, everybody, for your participation too. It's always a two-way street. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Stay tuned for next webinars. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
And we